Good morning, everybody. 10:31, 10:33. Sorry, I'm a little late, but we are here. Gonna get started here in a minute. Let everybody log on, connect to audio, and then we'll get started in just a minute. Good morning, Mr. Bale. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there. Hanging in there.
Good.
Mr. Martin, what's going on? How's quarantine in your beautiful home? You're muted.
Pretty good. You know,
I enjoy your Instagram post and all your wonderful pets that you have at your home.
I keep every time I go out for a hike, I look up and I expect to see you flying overhead.
No, not much.
I was up.
Go ahead.
I was hiking around up in the Angeles National Forest on Sunday, and I was probably at 9,000 feet or something like that. And I looked up. I was like, he's got to be flying around here somewhere.
Yeah, unfortunately, haven't been able to get too much of that in, but hopefully, once this is all over, we'll get some hanger time in there soon.
Good to see you, buddy.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Mr. Winicky, buenos dias. Marissa Miller, what's up? Mr. Sequeira, wait, do we have the honor of having Luis Sequeira on the call this morning? Oh my goodness. What a blessing. Ozzy, good morning. Jesse, what's going on? Gus. All right. Kamille, good morning. Do a quick sound check with you if you don't mind. Make sure that we can hear you okay.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. You good?
Loud and clear.
Good morning, everybody. Hi. Some familiar faces. What's up, Jesse? Hey, boo.
Awesome. So, guys, we're going to get started. Let's get into it. Thank you for being on our weekly all agents, really all community virtual roundtable. We've kind of geared this in the beginning towards our agent community, but it's grown into really our clients, our family, our friends, and we've been so fortunate to have some awesome speakers that have come on and shared with us, real estate updates. We had, a buddy of mine who's in the thick of it in New York as a physician treating, over 400 COVID patients. And today's guest speaker is a dear friend of We Fund LA. She is a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. She's the founder of The Ultimate Life, a friend of We Fund LA, my personal coach, Kamille Soler. Good morning, Kamille. How are you doing today?
Good. Hi, Daniel. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so Kamille has coached many of you that are on this call. Kamille coached Leslie, Joanne, a lot of the Highland Park Compass team. She's in the middle of coaching many of the agents at the agency with Gus's group. And we're really fortunate to have her on today to really just walk us through some of the mental blocks, mental challenges that I'm sure all of us are facing. I've had my moments of weakness where I just kind of sit in a corner and just put my head down and wonder, when is this going to all be over? And I want to get back to normal. I want to go have, pastrami at the hat with my team, like we usually do when we're feeling bad, and go have a dirty lunch, as we call it. But we're really fortunate and blessed to have Kamille on the call today. So as a quick reminder, if you don't mind, just keep your line muted during the presentation, but please use the chat box to ask any questions of Kamille. Evan Farley from our team will be monitoring the chat box, and we'll have a quick Q&A session with Kamille if anyone does have questions towards the end of the call. After Kamille, we'll have a quick mortgage update, some really, really important mortgage stuff that's happened. Obviously, it's an ever-evolving landscape, but we'll have some quick mortgage updates for you guys, some forbearance stuff. There's been a lot of questions on how, if you take a PPP loan out, does that affect your ability to qualify for a mortgage? And so we'll give you guys some updates. I know a lot of you have borrowers who are self-employed, they're business owners. They're taking advantage of some of these programs. So we'll give you guys some updates at the end of the call. And then, as always, we'll do some wants and needs and let you guys talk about anything that you need as far as real estate goes, any trends, and any best practices that you guys want to share. So with that, Kamille, I think we're week 5 into quarantine, something like that.
Right.
Beginning to feel heavy. I think some of us are going a little stir crazy at home, and I think we're all looking for an escape, and we're all wondering like what the new normal will look like. We have so many leaders, entrepreneurs, mothers, fathers, heads of household on this call, and I'd love to hear from you. What advice do you have for all of us to keep our mindset in check and make sure that we don't go into like this spiral of shame or the spiral of anxiety or fear? Walk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Simple question, just kind of give you one magic pill that cures it all. But before I get started on that, what I want to encourage each one of you, if you've never worked with me before, I'm very interactive. So coaching is a process that goes back and forth. So it is a partnership. So in order to get the most out of today's session, I'm going to encourage you to type in the chat if anything hits home for you. Like if you say, oh, whatever she said right now, that resonates with me, please type it in the chat. That's really important in this process of coaching. The reason that resonance is important when you're listening to this work is that's the message for you. So I'm going to say a lot of different things today, but if something hits home for you, if you say like, oh, that line she said about flexibility, or that line she said about routine, or that thing she said about control versus intention, that's for you. And so that's really the key to coaching, is being a great listener, because while I might teach, I'm also going to ask you some questions. Second thing, other than typing in the chat, anything that hits home for you, is if you have questions that come up. So if I say something and I talk really fast, because sometimes I get super passionate, and you're like, wait, expand on that, type it in the chat. And then I'm sure Daniel or Leslie or Joanne will make some space for those questions as we go through it. But talking about mindset, right? Daniel, you're talking about how do you keep this positive and aligned during this time when everyone's feeling a lot of anxiety and fear? Is that what you wanted to kind of dive into?
Yeah, I think, you've done such a great job of walking a lot of us on this call through challenges, or you call them puzzles. They're not problems, they're puzzles.
Right.
And we're in the middle of this big puzzle, right? Trying to put it all together. Yeah. Like help us, you've done such a good job on with a lot of us, but walk us through some of the challenges that we might be facing.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's very difficult during this season is, how do I get back into my routine, Kamille? How do I do the things I always used to do so that I can have this sense of normal again? And what's very common, especially for agents that I work with, is you all tend to have a very, what we call in the DISC assessment world, high D, high I personality. Very dominant, very interpersonal. You like to communicate. You also like control. That's why we're entrepreneurs, right? We don't want anybody else controlling us. We don't want a boss. We want freedom of our own time. And so now your control has been stripped. You don't have a choice. You have to stay at home. You have to shelter in place. You have to do business a different type of way that you're used to. And we don't like that. Most people don't, but it's the fact that now I don't have control over how I used to do things, and that can rock the boat for some people. Now in physics, and I want you to think about this, there is something called tensile strength. This is also a term they use in civil engineering. Tensile strength is the ability of a material to withstand tension and pressure. Fair to say right now, many of you might be withstanding a lot of tension and pressure as so much information is thrown at you. Things are changing on a daily. What is my business going to look like? And what's so fascinating is that there's a material that has a stronger tensile strength than steel. What do you think that material is? Some people think, well, like the strongest material is going to be steel, right? To have a steel-like mindset, to operate like steel, to be tough, to be rigid. But there's another material in nature that actually is stronger than steel. Anybody want to take a crack at it? You can either chat in the box or you can unmute yourself. Deborah said silk. I don't know if silk is stronger, but it is prettier, but you might be right, girl. I'll have to do some research on that. Jan guessed rubber. All right, we're seeing some bamboo. And if that's Stephanie Walsh, you're cheating, because she's in my group coaching program, so she knows this. So yes, Stephanie, you get 1,000 points. It's bamboo. Now it's amazing because bamboo has about 3 times the strength, maybe even 6 times the strength of steel. And the reason that it has such a stronger compensity to deal with tension and pressure is its ability to flex. The ability to flex during this time is why it's so strong. See, people sometimes think like, if I'm just rigid, if I'm controlled, if I just keep things exactly how I need to do it, then I'll succeed. And it's good to have routine, but from a mindset perspective, if you're not also willing to flex and to bend, essentially to create a new way, then when times of tension and pressure come, like right now, you'll snap. And that's what I'm starting to see with a lot of agents who don't have flexibility. They're not willing to be creative. They're not open to new possibilities. And so one of the challenges I want to give you today, especially in your season of business, is to ask yourself, what are the top 3 results I need to produce on a daily basis? What are the top 3 results you're looking for? So what I mean by that, it might be connection with clients, organizing my CRM, and self-development. That's just an example. So let's just say for right now, in all of your activities, whatever you would do Monday through Sunday when you were in your office, you were always looking to connect with a client, past, current, potential. I was always looking to organize my systems and processes, and I was always doing a little bit of self-development, coaching, listening to my mentors, meeting with my broker owners. Okay, so those are the results you were always creating on a daily basis. Now, what other ways can you produce those same results? Can you still connect with your clients during this time, past, present, and future? Absolutely, probably in an even more powerful way than you used to. Can you still organize your CRM? Absolutely, you probably have even more time to do that now, right? To be able to get to the things that you always said, I should do videos, I should do social media, I should finally get a virtual assistant, I gotta train my TC, we've been wanting to read this book. You got time. And remember this, in any given situation, agent, leader, broker, owner, single agent, doesn't really matter, but you're either always growing or dying. Those 2 processes are always taking place, your control or not, right? So you're either growing or dying. Now here's your control factor. Here's what you have control over, is you will either create an environment that helps you to succeed and grow, or you will continue to do habits, speak in a certain way, do certain things that's going to enhance the suffering and the death of your business. But either way, those 2 things are going to happen. You're kind of like the farmer, the gardener that's planting seeds and watering it to either grow, or you're totally abandoning ship because you're like, forget it. I've never been able to do this before. We've never been through this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to wait till the gates open up again. And then you don't water. And then you don't plant those seeds with clients. And you don't do the things now that will be your business 90 days from now. That is the worst thing you could do. In fact, there was an article that came out in Inman recently that gave advice to all agents across the country saying that the last thing you want to do is not connect with your clients and be a beacon of light and hope for them during this time. Because the agents that don't reach out, that don't connect, are the ones that will be forgotten or remembered as the ones who didn't check in with me. And then the ones who actually just said, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? They're the ones who 90 days from now, when all the coronials are born and you have move-up buyers ready to go because their space is too small in 10 months. I'm just saying, people got a lot of time at home. So you never know. Your buyers can go from just a married couple to soon young parents.
You're breaking up a little bit. I think it's maybe a little bit of a connection issue. We're catching most of it. I don't know if you wanted to try switching to a landline, or I don't know how everybody else.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, got you now. Coronials, I love it. I love it. A landline. Shut up, Alex.
I'm sorry. Is it still breaking apart?
A little bit, yeah. It's a little scratchy. Maybe you want to just go not landline, a cell phone line to the audio piece. But Leslie does have a question as well for you that we wanted to ask you.
Hold on 1 second. I switched over to a different line. How does this work?
A lot better. Yeah, a lot better.
A lot better.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry about that, you guys. What was the last thing you caught?
Coronials being born in about 9 months and everybody needing to buy a bigger house.
Right. So again, the worst thing you could do during this season is just sit back and say, well, I'll just wait till things get back to normal, because the truth is that we will not, quote unquote, go back to normal. We will have a new normal. So now is the time for you as a business owner and as an agent, as an entrepreneur, to begin restructuring your business in the new way it will be done. Because when we think about it, every world-changing event has changed the landscape of any particular industry that it hit. So for example, in 2008, when we had the housing crisis, the way we did mortgages and loans changed forever after that, for many years. After 9/11, it changed completely the way that we traveled. If you remember, there was a day where we were able to walk onto a flight with liquids and shampoo bottles and all sorts of stuff. We could keep our shoes on going through security, but after 9/11, that changed. After COVID-19, the way we do businesses will absolutely change. Every industry, every brokerage, every company will always anticipate, if this happens again, are we ready to go lean and to go virtual completely again? So that's why this is a phenomenal time for you to shine and sort of reassess, how can I expand in a new skill set? How can I get my virtual game on lock? Maybe this is the time to get that virtual assistant and start dialing in my systems and my processes. So much can be done during the season. But unfortunately, to sit and wish, I just want it to go back to normal, it will only hinder you right now. And it doesn't mean you can't feel some type of way. I know versus I feel is very different. I'll repeat that. I know versus I feel are two very different things. When I'm coaching top performing agents, when I'm coaching CEOs, they tell me a lot, Kamille, I feel this way. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling sad. Is it okay to feel that way? Yeah, absolutely. You can't control how you feel. 100%. You're human. You're empathic. You're sensitive to people's emotions. You deal with their stuff all day. But tell me, what do you know to be true? And usually when I say that, I'm met with, well, what do you mean, Kamille? What do you mean I know? I understand how you feel, but what promises do you stand on in life? What are your values? What do you know? Well, I know that no matter what, I'll find a way. I know that through every tragedy in my life, I've been able to overcome it. I know that with God, all things are possible, right? You have to have promises, values, mantras that you stand on. Consider it like this. If feelings and the emotions you have is like being in the ocean, you can't control her. The sea will go whatever direction she wants to go in. Now, what you know to be true are your anchors. You must be anchored to something. And that's why for the people who are really steady in the storm right now, it's because they're anchored in things that they know. So for you, what are the virtues that you stand on? Even knowing that as an agent, and it might seem like, well, Kamille, that's kind of deep for just like real estate talk. Is that really necessary? I would say so, because I think of all the sales, the different types of sales that people are in, you have the hardest job. Why? Because your sale is the thing that people spend their entire life saving for, and it's where they create their memories with their family. You're not just selling widgets or products or cell phones, you are literally selling the shelter in which they will live in for 10, 15, 20 years. It's a big emotional sale, right? Probably the biggest one most people will make in their life, and you are the broker for that. You are the liaison between their life savings and human emotion. So yeah, your business takes a lot out of you.
Kamille, we have a question. So
yeah,
much happening around us, and I think that you just touched an important point, which is, as in the industry that we're in, right, we have our minds wrapped around so much, right? Our community, how is this affecting our community? How is this affecting our clients? How is this affecting our local businesses in the community that our clients want to move into, right? There's so much that I feel like us that are in this industry, we have to keep our finger on the trigger on so many different things at so many different levels. And so one of the questions is, how do we keep it simple? Like, what can we stay focused on being positive and productive when there's so much information that I feel like in our industry, we feel it's necessary to try to understand as much of what is going on around us as possible. But how do we keep it productive, and how do we keep it positive and focused?
Absolutely. Really good. And the first one you said there, Leslie, is to keep it simple. So we can only give that which we have, which means you have to have your daily routine and schedule be simple right now. So I call it either have a rhythm, a routine, or a ritual. Whichever one of those words resonates with you the most, do that. And here's the difference. Rhythm gives your day flow. Routine gives your day structure. Ritual gives your day meaning. So whichever one resonates with you the most, keep that. And I'm, for example, I'm more of a rhythm-based person. So right now, the only 3 things that I'm doing is what I call go to church, go to school, go to work. That's my rhythm in the day. So I always begin my day in some sort of meditation, prayer, scripture reading, just time alone to prep my mind, body, and soul for the day. The second thing that I do is I do some sort of industry reading something on self-development, coaching, just to keep my mindset pitched for growth, essentially always learning in my skill sets. And then I go to work. When I follow those 3 things, everything else in my life follows those 3 patterns. So even when I'm looking at information, I'm keeping it simple for my clients. But the reason I say that's important to start with is because when you keep it simple for yourself, it's much easier to digest information than make it simple for others, right? Because however your mind's operating is then how you will speak, how you will lead, how you will serve. So if this is like all cluttered, you don't know what your direction is during the day, I don't have a rhythm, I don't have a routine, I don't have a ritual, then naturally how you speak to clients, how you portray that information will also be jumbled. So the first place you start with is you. And so that's why I say either having those top 3 results you're looking to produce every day, keep it simple. I'm just looking to connect, I'm looking to organize, I'm looking to grow. That's it. However I get that done in a day, doesn't matter, but those are the 3 things that are important. I call it basic business hygiene. Think about it, right? If brushing your teeth, washing your face, and combing your hair every single morning, hopefully for most of you still, but you know, some of y'all are on video, so I can see you didn't do some of those basics. I'm just teasing you. But those are the basics. No matter what, everything else is extra. So even in your business, there's 3 basic hygienes. What is brushing your teeth in business, washing your face, and combing your hair? Keep it simple right now, because that's all we've got. Things are going to change so fast. It's easier to be flexible when you have a simple schedule. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Leslie. And thank you for stopping me for those questions. Any other questions so far that have come through the chat?
Joanne, I think, has a question.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
Wonderful.
Beautiful to see you. So I wanted to ask, so you coach some of the most successful agents in our industry. Is there anything that you're seeing as some of like best practices, something that they're doing on the daily, other than what you've already shared with us, of course, that are, I guess, keeping them engaged with their clients, like agents that are doing something out of the ordinary right now, or anything that you can share with us?
Absolutely. So number 1, they're doing virtual meetups like this. So a lot of them are doing virtual happy hours for their clients. They're conducting agent roundtables just like this one. They're also doing client homebuyer roundtables where they're just teaching, asking questions. They're basically finding a need. Lots of people are craving information right now, and they're just filling that need, right? So once a week, they might host a virtual meetup for all of their clients. Hey, these are the latest updates in the real estate market. Or, hey, this is the latest information on paycheck loans. Or, hey, this is the latest information on immunity and your health. So they know their clients best. So they're just filling that need. Or maybe they're in a local community, like I have a client out in Denver, Colorado. So every single week she's doing something on how to support small businesses in this area. So she speaks to her clients about local businesses in that area, but really just being present with them. The second thing, and I know this might sound overly simple, is they're literally texting every day or calling them and just saying, hey, how are you? That's it. Just a quick check-in, really, how are you? How's your family doing? Is there anything you guys need right now? And one of the coolest stories I heard, it's actually someone I'm coaching with right now at the agency, is she overheard either a friend of hers or a client who was, venting over the phone about how she was doing, kind of complaining, I can't find this one particular thing at the grocery store. And so that was kind of a bummer, but, no big deal, I'll get it next time. So this client of mine, an agent at the agency, went ahead and went on Amazon, ordered that exact same thing for her client that she couldn't find at the grocery store, and had it sent to her house. And then she got a phone call later on, was just like, oh my gosh, that's not why I told you I couldn't find it at the grocery store, but thank you, with tears in her eyes. And so those are just like the little ways right now that all you have to do is show up as a decent human being. You don't even need to be an agent right now. But what the most amazing part is, most of them end up doing business with them. Like they'll ask, well, you know, I do want to buy a house in about 7 months. Can you help me figure out my savings plan? So again, just checking in with people. And then the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of them do is any programs, videos, or CRMs that they've been meaning to organize for a while, they're getting it done now. So now it's finally happening, right? That Instagram Live they've been wanting to put out for clients, the virtual home tours, the Facebook Lives, they're finally doing it because now they have the time. So really what it is they're planting seeds, Joanne. And I tell them all the time, think of it this way, and it's a beautiful quote that I love from Robert Louis Stevenson. Don't judge the day by the harvest that you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. So I ask them, what deposits are you making in your people? What deposits are you making in the garden of your clients? Because that's the biggest focus is if you're looking to get something from them right now, wrong focus. That's a scarcity mindset. But the abundance mindset is that you plant seeds in people just by checking in with how they're doing. Awesome. So really that's the only intentionality they have right now. Again, keep it simple, make the connection, and make the deposits with your clients.
Just show up as a decent human being. Serve, don't sell.
It's simple.
I love it.
Right.
I love it. You know, and I think
right.
all of us have to understand and accept that we'll be doing a lot of activities today that may not necessarily net any commission, but that's okay. That's okay. Like we're not here necessarily today to make a sale. We're in the business of serving and like you said, finding that shelter for our clients. And it's such an intimate process that we get to be a part of. And today maybe is not that day to make the sale, right? Maybe today is the day to serve, which will set up your third quarter, your fourth quarter, or allow you to go deep in a way that's difficult to do when things are great. It's difficult to do when everything's, perfect. But, I think it's in these times of hardship. I think it's in these times where we're all facing these challenges that you have the ability to connect with people on such a deep level that they're going to remember for as long as they live, who checked in with them, who texted them, mm-hmm. who sent them that little item that they couldn't find at the grocery store. And those are the connections that I think will last a lifetime. So thanks for sharing that. Does anybody have any questions for Kamille? We'll open it up for a quick Q&A and we'll move on to some
there was one in the chat. Jacqueline asked, I know a lot of people time block on here. So do you think it's important to keep our regular schedule? I'm assuming would you maybe tailor the schedule now and maybe switch it up now that we are in this new normal?
That's a great question. Thanks, Jacqueline. Yes, it's important to keep up a regular schedule. Absolutely. Especially again, because the storms are going, right? We don't know what's happening on a daily basis. So the more consistency that you can create in your day and your schedule during an inconsistent time, it's important. But your regular schedule may look different. So that's why I asked, are you more rhythm? Are you routine? Are you ritual? And whichever one you are, you might be a little bit of a mixture, but finding your new rhythm, your new routine, and your new ritual. So time blocking for Jacqueline might look different than time blocking for Kevin, as an example. She might be more of a morning person, and so her time blocking is from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I do my calls, and then from 4 to 5 I do another set of calls. And Kevin's like, no, I'm more of a mid-afternoon guy, so I do my calls from 12 to 1 and 1 to 2. Again, how you do it isn't so important as remembering what is the result I'm looking to produce. That's what I really want you to keep in mind. So yes, my result is connecting with my client. Great. How you get it done, that's on you. Whatever your strength is, flow during that time. So again, consistency is important. If you want to keep it simple too, if you're wondering, Kamille, how do I stay consistent during an inconsistent time? I call it the 3 Bs. All of my top performing clients are focusing on 3 things to be consistent on during the season: their brain, their business, and their body. That's it. So no matter what, every day they do something for their mindset. They listen to a motivational video, they read a new book, they're on a course, they listen to audiobooks. Second, they take care of their body. They go out for runs, they work out at home, they meditate, they do breath work, something to keep this healthy. Because right now you want a strong immunity system, right? And one of the things that's going to compromise them most is stress. And stress also comes from a poor mindset. Because where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're only focused on what you can't control right now, why things are bad, why things are negative, then everything in your life is going to flow in that direction. Read the news for what information you need and then move on. Before I became a coach, just to give you a little bit of background, I actually used to work at CNN in Washington, D.C., long time ago. So I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, or at least until I found out how the news was designed. And this is not to knock on the news, but because I understand how it's designed, it's not necessarily meant to only inform you. It is meant to capture your attention. So watching the news cycle 24 hours a day is not informative. Get a quick headline and move on. It's meant to engage emotions of fear. That's how companies like that get ratings. So with that said, you have to protect your mindset. Jim Rohn would say, stand guard at the door of your mind. That's your job. And so whatever you decide to fill it with next, which is why they're consistent with everyday positive messages, audiobooks, inspirational talks, whatever, you can find them off of YouTube. It's not hard. If you have time to watch negative news, you have time to look up positive talks. If you have time to listen to negative news, you have time to look up an audiobook that you've been wanting to listen to. You could be mentored by Oprah, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all of them right now. If you just go download their audiobooks, like that's all, literally you can have them as mentors, but it's on you to intentionally put that on your schedule. So again, brain, body, and then finally business. They are always doing something in the business every single day. And they ask those 3 questions. What are the top results I'm looking to produce?
Awesome.
So simple.
Thank you. We'll take one more question. Evan, do we have one more question in the chat box?
There was one more. What meditations, books, or coaches do you love?
What was that one more time, Evan?
What meditations, books, or coaches in particular do you love and would you recommend?
Oh, great question. So 2 apps that I really like for meditation, well, actually there's 3. So number 1 is Headspace. If you've never meditated before, that's a good starter one. I believe the shortest meditation they start off with is like just a few minutes. The second one is Calm. Calm is really nice because it's got really great noise and ambient backgrounds and timers on it. And the third one, this is more of a faith one, but it's called Abide, A-B-I-D-E. So those are Christian meditations that I love listening to. So that has a scriptural component to it. Now, when it comes to books, hard question because there are so many, but a couple that come at the top of my head. Number 1, I always recommend The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. That is a super easy read. You will knock that out in half a day. I love it for salespeople, especially. There's a second book next to that. I believe it's The Go-Giver Sells More, right, Daniel? That's the other book. Highly recommend that book as well. And if you're looking for ways to simplify, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Incredible book. And finally, Principles by Ray Dalio. I really love as well.
Great.
And coaches, last one is, I think they asked about coaches. It depends what you are looking for. But I would say The Ultimate Life is your best bet for overall.
Heck yeah, I concur. I concur, and many people on this call will concur. Where can people find out more about you, more about The Ultimate Life?
You actually can just go to my website. It's theultimatelife.com. And then I would recommend looking me up on YouTube. If you want just free resources, if you want some of those inspirational videos, every single Monday I put out a Monday Mastery Mindset session. And I can basically be your personal coach every single Monday and just watch those videos. They're like 7 minutes max. But just Google my name on YouTube. You should be able to find it.
Got it. So that's The Ultimate Life, but life is spelled L-Y-F-E, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see it here in the background, L-Y-F-E. It stands for Live Your Fullest Every Day.
Awesome.
And so you just check that out.
Chat box if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Kamille, thank you so much for all of the guidance.
You're so welcome.
The love today and for continuing to serve our community. We're so lucky to have you as a friend, a partner, and keep serving. Love you. Thank you so much for being here.
Likewise. Love you all too. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. You can stay on if you'd like and hang out and hear a little bit about what's going on in mortgage and real estate if you'd like, but if not, I know you may have to jump on another call. So we're going to transition really quick, guys, to give you a quick mortgage update. Maybe not so quick, but it's really critical. Obviously it's an ever-changing landscape. There are a ton of changes. There are product suspensions, products unsuspension, and we're getting stuff back that was taken away. And it's a changing landscape, but it absolutely will impact the way you conduct business. It will absolutely have an effect on how you conduct business moving forward. So we're going to highlight 2 or 3 of the big, breaking newses, if you will, or the big pieces of information I think you guys should know as you transition into, this new normal, as Kamille talked a little bit about. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Evan and Leslie that will give us a quick update on some programs and products.
Yeah, I think Daniel touched on a lot of it. I think probably next week we might go into a little bit more detail, and just in respect of time, we'll just kind of brush over a couple of things. Guidelines are changing. Lenders are kind of like what we talked about in the last couple of weeks. Is they're just looking at ways to minimize risk. I'm sure you guys saw some of the headlines with some of the bigger banks like Chase. Chase is actually no longer accepting HELOC applications. So one of the ways that they're just trying to cut back and minimize risk, they increase their minimum FICO and so forth. So we're going to go into probably a little bit more detail. I know Leslie wanted to touch on FHA. There's a reason why we may start seeing a little bit more FHA versus conventional, and some of the reason behind that. So I'll let you touch on that.
Yeah, we all know, especially you all as real estate agents, that if you have a conventional loan versus an FHA loan as an offer, I mean, you tend to kind of take a look at that conventional loan as a more favorable loan, right? Conventional loan, just in general, guidelines have always been a little more conservative or a little more strict, right? So if you have a client with great credit score, right? Good down payment, even let's just say 10% down payment, but they've got great credit score. They've got, what a lender is looking for on a higher end client. They're going to go with a conventional loan versus an FHA loan. But I wanted to share that you might start seeing more pre-approvals with clients that are getting FHA loans. And it's not because the client couldn't qualify for a conventional loan. It's simply because that FHA loan may be the best product for that client. Even if they're doing 20% down, that FHA loan and rate may still be the best option, at least from today's perspective, for that client. So, like I said, definitely keep, your lending partners as a cross qualification or as a connection to run these offers by them. And reason being, just to give you a kind of a high level overview, is we all know that the borrowers they pay the loan, they pay their mortgage, right, to a servicer who plays as the middle person between the investor. So you've got the borrower that pays their monthly mortgage payment, the investor that owns the loan, and the servicer that collects the payment and hands it over. So recently, last week, FHA received access to liquidity so that when clients do go into forbearance or do defer their payments and cannot make that mortgage payment because of the environment that we're in, that servicer was seen as someone that had to front the money. So if I'm the borrower, I can't pay my mortgage to my servicer still had to pay the investor for that monthly mortgage payment out of their own capital because they weren't collecting it from me. So these government loans just received essentially relief, right? They received access to liquidity so that they don't have to pay it out of their own capital. When I can't pay my mortgage, they don't have to pay it out of their own capital. They have access to liquidity, right? And that was something that was recently passed, right? So that in return starts to change and adjust the rates that are offered for these loans. Because in the past, just to put it pretty simple, if you were getting a government loan, an FHA loan, for example, and you didn't make that first monthly mortgage payment because you weren't employed, you went straight into deferment or forbearance, that loan was now unsellable to an investor, right? So that is the only reason why we're saying that an FHA loan could be a better option for a client that could qualify for both FHA and conventional because of the rates. And that all kind of trickles down to the rate that is being offered and the loan package that's being offered to the client. So don't, shoot down an FHA loan because you might think, well, it means they might have a lower FICO score, whatever the scenario might be. Not necessarily in this market. Everything is changing, constantly. So just trying to keep you guys as informed as possible and keep your lender on speed dial. And people are lobbying. We're all lobbying for relief for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, essentially conventional loans, to have some sort of relief. There's been some updates today on potential relief. So we'll continue to keep you guys informed in how that adjusts conventional pricing as well. But just to kind of give you guys an overview of, don't be afraid of those FHA loans. Obviously, we know condo side of things, they have to be FHA approved. So that's a little bit more of an overlay that you'll have to deal with as a real estate agent, as a potential listing agent. But just know that FHA loans are still in today's market could be considered as strong as a conventional loan.
Awesome. Leslie, what a good job of kind of breaking it down for us in layman's terms. And I actually really enjoyed hearing the updates and why FHA might come back, and you put it in really simple terms. Thanks for doing that. Leslie touched a little bit about forbearance, and we've talked about it a couple of times on these calls, right? And I want to reiterate the importance of making sure that we're delivering the right message. And there's a very, very important message when it comes to forbearance, and that's really use it if you need it. If you have a legitimate hardship, you're going to get calls from clients. You may get calls from friends or family knowing that you're in the business, you're in real estate, you're in mortgage. And the message is to use it if you absolutely need to. If you have a legitimate hardship, you've lost your job, you don't have any money saved up for a rainy day, and you have no other option but to ask for a forbearance, that's what the program is there for. But it's not there to assist the client who is still working, who has money in the bank, who has a bunch of other options, but just is looking for a 12-month hiatus on their mortgage payment. That's not who the program was intended for, to help. And so I think if we see a run on the banks from requests, from people who don't necessarily really need the forbearance program, it's going to put an undue amount of pressure, and it's going to have it's going to do irreversible damage to the industry as a whole. So, our message to everybody is use it if you need it, but let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing, because it could have a catastrophic effect on our industry, on our business, that will take even longer to recover from. I mean, who knows how long this recovery is going to take, but it could even prolong the recovery if we see a lot of people asking for forbearance that don't necessarily need it. The other thing too that came out recently was Go ahead.
One thing before you move on from forbearance, I just want to touch on too. They're making it incredibly easy to apply. So I had one client where he thought that he was just learning more about the forbearance on the website, and they boom automatically put his loan into forbearance, and he had to call in, sit on servicing for hours just to get out of that forbearance. So prep your clients too, that they're making it so it's good for the people that really do need it. But it's almost so easy that some people don't even know that they're triggering their loan into forbearance. So it's something that they want to be careful for, especially if they have a current loan or a refinance or anything in process, because it could trip up some things.
And not that anybody,
yes.
not that anybody.
On that point, Evan, excuse me. Hey, Daniel, I'm sorry. It's Anselm. I don't mean to derail you. I just, there's a lot of confusion in my client base around forbearance. And I know we've touched on it on previous calls, but could you express how forbearance is going to look down the road to a lender? If a future borrower has taken advantage of forbearance for whatever reason, for legitimate reasons or for just being opportunistic, how are you going to look at that on a loan application a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever? It's very unclear. I've been struggling to advise clients about this.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so a couple of things. There's not one size fits all type of forbearance, right? There's 12 months forbearance. There's tag it onto the back of the loan forbearance. There is a balloon payment forbearance, where if you ask for 3 months and then on the 4th month when it's over, you have to pay the entire balance all at one time. There's not a one size fits all type of program out there. Different banks are doing different things depending on the circumstance of each client. But unfortunately, there isn't a ton of clarity on what the long-term picture looks like from an underwriting perspective, but I can absolutely tell you from a short-term perspective, it's a deal killer. it's an absolute deal killer. If we have a borrower who is talking about forbearance or is in forbearance and is looking to refinance and has already applied for forbearance with their existing servicer, it's an automatic deal killer. We can't do that loan. It shows weakness on the part of the borrower. And if that client has any hopes of potentially refinancing down the line or purchasing a home and obtaining a new mortgage sometime in the near future, which I'll call 12 to maybe 24 months, right? Could be up to 2 years. They're very likely going to have issues with qualifying for a new mortgage. They're going to have to prove that their hardship is over. And so again, I don't think, unfortunately, there's a clear indication of, if you ask for forbearance, you're on the sidelines for X amount of months, or when they did in 07 and 08, when you either ask for a modification or there's some very black and white guidelines. A BK needs to be seasoned X amount of years. Modification needs to be for short sale needs to be seasoned an X amount of years, right? There's these very black and white guidelines. Those haven't come out yet for forbearance, but I can tell you that the underwriters are looking very, very carefully at all the applications coming in and really trying to mitigate the risk. And they're asking themselves, what is the likelihood that if we fund this loan, that the borrower might be requesting a forbearance in the near future, right? So they're putting a lot of emphasis on post-closing liquidity. They're looking at the borrower's assets after closing. If assets are really strong, that makes an underwriter feel, a lot better. And so we've had, like I think I mentioned to you guys on the previous call, we had two very similar profiles, two very similar borrowers that were in the same line of work. One had a lot of assets post-closing, the other one didn't. And so, unfortunately, we saw where one got approved, the other one didn't. So, I know that doesn't give you a ton of clarity, AC, but I would just say, advise your clients to do the right thing. And if they need it, use it. And just know that if you do use the forbearance program, that it could have a negative, repercussions as far as borrowing ability down the line.
Daniel, Anselm, I would say that, don't mean to cut you off, Daniel, but let's look at historical data. When we went through the Great Recession of 2008, right? And you had clients that were unemployed, people that went into payment deferment plans. Later on, it was seen as a loan modification, right? So what happens is almost a ripple effect. This was put out as a quick aid, right? But there's no guidance on how underwriting is going to look at it, right? Today, we don't have any guidance on how underwriting is going to look at it in the future when it comes to banks, individual banks, non-banks, how the mortgage industry is going to look at it in the future. So what I do say and what I do advise when I've even talked to attorneys and clients is, in the past, let's look at historical data. When we went through 2008, it was seen at the end of everything as a loan modification. Then came the investors, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, jumbo guidelines. They all set out their own requirements for seasoning. A seasoning period is what we call it, of when they could obtain a loan after they had a loan modification. So then the guideline might say, if you're getting an FHA loan, you had a loan modification during this period, in the most recent X amount of years, you have to wait 12 months, or you have to wait 2 to 4 years, right? And again, these guidelines will be put out eventually by the investors, but it's not something that we have quite yet, right? So the one thing I do explain to clients is there's just so much unknown with the aftermath, right? Can it be seen as a loan modification? Possibly, if everyone decides to call it that, right? Will there be guidelines, just like 2008, that say there's an X amount of seasoning requirements, but depending on the investor, jumbo, FHA, conventional, yes, right? Possibly. That's the part that's unknown, and that's where you have your client just make an informed decision on whether it's a true hardship and they need to take it, that they shouldn't care how it's going to look in the future if they try to refinance or purchase. But if it's an option that they're considering where maybe they don't have to take it, explaining what it looked like historically might help them make that decision.
And all great points. And one thing I want to point out that Joanne mentioned in the chat, credit scores may not be effective. However, lenders will look at the mortgage payment history, even if it doesn't, for whatever reason, report as a loan mod, or if it doesn't report to the credit bureaus. Let's say you got a loan at Chase or whatever, and you want to go to refinance or whatever at Chase, they can look at your 12-month payment history. So the lender will be able to see, it may affect where they can get their current loan. It may not, their new loan. It may not report to where everyone can see, but if they, let's say if they wanted to stick with their bank was offering the best rate, but they look and they see the 12-month payment history that, you know, they applied for forbearance, they're most likely that's a way for them to look at it. So even if a lot of people are saying, well, it's not going to report, or they say it's not going to do this, typically someone will be able to research that information, and it could cause trouble down the road.
I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, they put in, you know, for the foreseeable future, that lenders put a guideline in there and request what's called a VOM, a verification of mortgage, because there's, I don't know, I think the numbers came out yesterday. I think 6% of all mortgages are currently in forbearance as of yesterday. And that number is very likely going to rise. But because of what's going on, yeah, the credit report might not show technically that the borrower skipped the payment, but you know, what's to say the underwriter doesn't now request for a VOM, a verification of mortgage, which will give the true payment history. But the other thing I'm very curious too is to see how the credit report reads, because you know, if we all look at credit reports every day, you know, the lending industry, and there's like these little tick marks every time a borrower makes a payment on time, they get a little tick mark, and there's a couple years worth of history on the credit report. Well, I don't know, they technically can't get a tick mark for that payment, you know, in April that they missed, or that it's in forbearance. So I'm wondering how that's going to report on the credit report. But either way, guys, let's just make sure we're conveying the right message, delivering the right message to our clients that, you know, use it if you need it, but it could impact your ability to borrow in the future. And so the other thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit is we have a lot of self-employed borrowers who are business owners. Many of you on this call are business owners. You know, a lot of our clients have businesses that employ, you know, a lot of people. And so we're getting calls from clients saying, hey, you know, I'm in the pre-approval phase. I've got my active pre-approval with you, but I want to take out a PPP loan, the payment protection program. Will that negatively impact my ability to borrow and close on a mortgage? And up to about a week ago, the answer was kind of like, yeah, it is. It's going to show weakness on the part of your business. But you know, we've come out with some updated guidelines recently that will allow, you know, for a borrower to obtain a mortgage, even if they get a PPP program, even if they obtain one of these government assistance programs, as long as it's being used to continue to pay and you know, continue to employ their people. So a little bit of relief on that end as well. But you know, it's a case by case basis. It's like, what industry are you in? You know, Ozzy just asked a really good question. Like, you know, how are underwriters going to ease the restrictions and take into account this unprecedented event that we're all going through? And again, I think it's case by case, it's industry by industry. You know, if you're in one of those industries that, you know, I'll take Disneyland for an example, right? If you had someone that's employed by Disney, which we actually do, we have a whole bunch of people that you know, live here in Burbank or Glendale that got furloughed, right? And they were either in the middle of a refinance or in the middle of, you know, shopping for a home. And, you know, Disney furloughed a bunch of their employees recently. And so, but Disney might be one of those industries that as soon as this is over, God willing, sooner than later, that, you know, the flip is back on, they're back to work. And, you know, if they're back to work and employed, gainfully employed and working full time again, you know, I think a strong letter of explanation detailing their nature of the business and that they're back to work and in a full-time capacity. If that borrower wanted to apply for a loan, you know, in October, for example, if and when this is all over and they're back to work, I've got to imagine that there's going to be flexibility around that, right? Same thing with our entertainment industry clients, right? I think that many of our clients who are in entertainment industry that are in production, and let's just say production gets shut down for 3 months, right? Let's just say March, April, May, and everybody goes back to work on June 1st, right? I've got to imagine that we're going to use common sense and we're going to exclude the 90 days, because what we do with entertainment industry clients and people in production, we do averages. We look at the last couple of years worth of income, maybe the last year's worth, and a year-to-date average. Well, it's not fair that we look at the borrower's year-to-date average when, you know, they didn't make any money for 90 days, to no fault of their own. So I think to answer your question, Ozzy, I think we're going to have some flexibility. It's going to be case by case. It's going to be industry by industry. And we'll have to kind of look at each particular case, each particular borrower on a case by case basis. So before we wrap, I think we have a couple of our escrow partners on the call. Joelle's on the call. I think I saw, or maybe she's still on. Kristen Hartwick's on the call. wanted to hear from you. I think a lot of our agent partners actually kind of want to hear from our escrow partners. What are you guys seeing? What are you guys, maybe percentages? How as much has business been affected? Are you guys down 10%? Are you guys down 50%? I know I'm putting you kind of on the spot here, but if you guys maybe don't mind sharing, Joelle and Kristen, if you guys are on the call.
I'm here, Daniel. Hi, it's Kristen Hartwick. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but yeah, if you don't mind sharing, I know you and I caught up a couple days ago on a call, and you were telling me a little bit about what you're.
Did he ask me?
Joelle, I'm going to mute you real quick, and then Kristen, go ahead, and then we'll go to Joelle.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for the question. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely down, obviously. The number's higher than I think even what we could have expected. I would say we're roughly at about 50%, which it's stabilized. It's kind of gone, up and down. The later part of March was definitely the weakest period for obvious reasons. We saw a cancellation rate that I don't think I could have ever imagined in my experience. So it was a little over double. We went just a little over 200%, but that number has definitely stabilized. And we're getting down to a little over 90% higher on the cancellation rate.
Got it. As far as new or transactions that are in escrow that, can you talk about maybe a couple of scenarios where you've seen a potential cancellation, but there was a way to make the deal work? Are you seeing a lot of like last minute buyer concessions requests and any best practices that you've been seeing that may work for agents that may be in the middle of potentially losing a deal?
Sure. So we've actually had two transactions in which we had a seller who had tested positive with COVID, and then we had a buyer who had tested positive. And so in both of those, they were quite interesting experiences in kind of going through that process. In the transaction that the buyer tested positive with COVID, they, after lifting contingencies, actually ended up getting a little over $100,000 price reduction. Whether or not that was because they tested positive, who really knows? But at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of price reductions where the sellers have pretty much, decided to reduce the price just to get it to sell, which we've seen a little bit more frequently than, ever in the past. But on a positive note, I mean, deals are still closing. Buyers still want to buy. Escrows are still happening. We still have, even at a 50% drop, we still have a good number of openings, but not obviously what we want to see them look like, not what anyone wants.
Sure. Yeah. And I think we've seen, a big, we've seen some agents really be able to coach their clients through what's going on, even despite the craziness. I mean, we have a lot of buyers who have been beat out been looking for a year and have lost out on, a dozen homes due to multiple offers. And so we have a lot of agents that are able to coach their clients through what really maybe an opportunity, if anything. And we're also seeing that as well. I mean, we're actually a lot busier than we expected on the purchase side as well. Thanks for all the insight. Joelle, what's going on at Chartwell? What are you guys seeing? And if you don't mind just sharing maybe some statistics.
Hey, Daniel, sorry, I walked away. I got a call. We're at a 23% cancellation rate, and our normal is about 17 to 20%. So with all things considering, it's not bad, but what Kristen said, we are down about 50% in openings so far. So yesterday I talked to a few of my escrow officers, and they let me know that the cancellations are due obviously to COVID, and lenders and a lot of buyers are just bailing out. So yeah, so it's not where we want to be with openings for sure.
Thanks for sharing.
Welcome.
Lastly, I wanted to open it up to kind of wants and needs. And Jan Amamian, are you on the call, Jan, by any chance? Jan Amamian, I saw you earlier. I don't know if you're still on the call. Yes, Jan, can you unmute? I actually was walking yesterday took Chico on a walk and ran into Ellen and her daughter that are looking for something specific in Linda Vista, would this be a good opportunity to talk about what they're looking for, since they're kind of in a crunch here for time?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
Sorry, I'm not used to doing this. So they are looking for 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. They'd actually rather have 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, but beggars can't be choosers. So, and up to about 1.5, correct? You've qualified them. So I think we're at 1.5, right? Yay. And their preferred areas would be Linda Vista would be their #1 choice, but we're also looking in Glendale and possibly parts of La Crescenta. So if anybody has anything that they're sitting on, it would be great, because we just haven't seen anything. We went and looked at a house a couple days ago and it just needed too much work. So, and they're very motivated because their lease is up in a couple months and they have to be out. So.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I've got to imagine there's kind of this pent-up inventory. Maybe a lot of people are holding back their listings because it's maybe not the ideal time to go on market. And some people have a different approach, and some people are going on market. I caught up with Kevin Borland, who I think was on the call earlier. I was talking to Kevin this weekend, and he's like, I'm full speed ahead. My stuff's getting multiples. We're selling over asking. And so, but I do believe that there's probably a pent-up, inventory level, but there's also a bunch of buyers who may be looking to do off-market deals. So, if you guys want to share, or anybody want to unmute and talk a little bit about, what you may be looking for a particular client. Not all at one time. Okay. Anybody have any parting thoughts before we, yes. Who is that?
Julie Mallow. Julie
Hey,
Mallow.
Julie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Talk to us.
Good. So I have something that is getting ready, and I can't, I have a video and all that stuff. So it's in Las Feliz. It's a 3-2. It's pricier than the gal who just spoke. So we're at 1674 is listed. It's a 3-2, but it's in Franklin Village. It's very, very sweet. That's Las Feliz Franklin School. And I think it's sort of that house that people would really want. Single level, beautiful backyard, eat-in kitchen, a big den. So it's a really good one. So if anybody has anyone, please give me a shout and we'll figure something out. I'm trying to figure out what to do. I got to talk to Kevin apparently, because he's already doing it. And I've been holding a few things, like not knowing what to do. So I'm going to give him a buzz. Yeah. Thanks for that info. Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else before we wrap here? I know we're at the hour mark.
Yes, it's Joyce Lynn. I have a 3-2 in Alhambra that's on the market at $799. It's also really well updated. It's got a chef's kitchen. So if anyone knows of a buyer looking in Alhambra, please reach out.
Awesome.
Hey, Daniel. It's Colette.
How are you?
Hey. Good, thanks. I have 2 actually coming up this week. They're both getting photographed tomorrow. They're staged and unoccupied, both in South Pasadena. One on Fremont. It is a 2-2, about 1,400 square feet. That'll be listed at $975. And I have another one on Laurel in between Fair Oaks and Fremont, and that is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. That'll be listed at $1,399. It's a really cool 2-story with a very, very large backyard. So I have those 2. And I have one on Carmelo, which is a cute little cul-de-sac in Pasadena. That is a 2-1 that'll be listed for $815. It's super clean and updated. So that'll be coming on as well.
I think we should just change the street name Carmelo to Colette, since you sell every house on that block. Cool. Can't wait to see.
They're all great if anybody is looking for them, and they're all priced really well. So hopefully we will have buyers, and love to work with you guys. Thanks.
Awesome. Anybody else? Speak now or forever. Hold your peace. We will see all of you next Tuesday for our next all agent roundtable. And thank you so much for jumping on today, guys. Have a great day. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Be well.